Though this seems like a dream, we, mankind living on this earth, have been visited by others in this universe, as if they flew here from other stars. They came first from the moon, our closest neighbor. When we became adults, perhaps we thought, surely this must have been a dream, and we forgot. This tale is from the people of the moon in the heavens above us. It is the story of the Bamboo Princess. This fairy tale, a story of the moon's curious events, was handed down by the hands of our ancestors. What a wonderful legacy. Once upon a time, in a small village far away from the capital, lived an old man known as the bamboo cutter. The old man and his old wife lived together in a nice little house. Every day the old man went up to the mountain to cut bamboo for a living, which is why the people of the village called him the old bamboo cutter. But the old man's real name was Sanuki no Miya Tsukomaro. Every morning, the old man would say, "Grandma, I'm leaving." He would pick up the lunch she had made for him and leave for the bamboo thicket. One day, the old man saw a strange bamboo in the mountain thicket. One of the bamboo was aglow with a glittering light. The old man thought, "Oh my, what is this?" As he came closer, he saw that from one joint to the next, a glittering light shone forth. "I say, what is the meaning of this? In all my life, I've never seen a bamboo as strange as this." He bent over, and inside the bamboo, made transparent by the light, he saw the lovely form of a tiny baby girl only 4 inches long. The old man looked in amazement. What a pretty child! Surely she is a gift from God. Every day and every night I've worked, and now the bamboo thicket has borne me a daughter. Without a doubt, she is my daughter. He murmured to himself, and then he removed the tiny girl baby from the bamboo and carefully carried her home in his hands. "Grandma, come here, look." Grandma had never been more amazed. My, what a tiny daughter. Today has been good. She is so cute. Grandma was so thrilled as she looked into his hands. "Grandma, from this day forth she shall be our daughter," said Grandpa. Yes, that we will do, agreed Grandma. Grandma put the tiny baby into a basket as if she were her own child. Then she made her a small pillow and a cover. The tiny child went quietly to sleep. Though the sun rose into the sky, Grandpa and Grandma stayed happily by her side. Their new child was the old couple's treasure. Strange things began to happen. When Grandpa went out to cut bamboo as he always did, gold coins poured from inside the bamboo. This did not happen just once, but 2, 3 times and more. "Grandma, today again money spilled out of the bamboo," said Grandpa as he returned from his strange day. "My, what peculiar things are happening," said Grandma as she looked at the tiny girl in the bed. Without a doubt, no stranger 5 thing had ever happened. Grandma felt she were in a dream, but she resolved to raise the baby girl as her very own. Grandpa and Grandma had never been greedy, but now they became very wealthy. In fact, they became the wealthiest people in the little village. Everyone in the village was amazed at their good fortune, and the little girl, born from the bamboo, grew bigger. Why, within 3 months, she was as tall as any other daughter, and Grandpa did feel that she was very, very much their true daughter. Grandpa and Grandma gave their daughter a party as she reached adulthood. Also, as their daughter grew older, they gave her a divinely beautiful kimono to wear, as was the custom. Grandpa and Grandma built a beautiful home for their daughter. They seldom went outside because they loved to be with her so much. There was no one else on earth that could compare with her beauty. She was so beautiful that the inside of Grandpa's house seemed to dazzle and shine. The home's every corner shone out. Even when Grandpa was not strong or feeling well, all he had to do was look upon his daughter and his weaknesses blew away. Even if he was sad or frustrated, when he saw her, all ill feelings would disappear. Grandpa became very wealthy, and his daughter became an extremely beautiful girl. Then one day, Grandma said, "We must give our daughter a name." Grandpa smiled and said, "Yes, I too have been thinking about that. Who shall we call to give a name such as this?" So Grandpa went to a place called Mimuro to talk to a man named Inbeno Akita and asked, "Please give my daughter a beautiful name." When Inbeno Akita saw the young girl's face, he said, "Neo Takeno Kaguyahime shall be her name." Grandpa thanked Inbeno Akita very much. To give their daughter a name, they held a party. Everyone in the village came to the christening, and for the feast, they all went up into the mountain where they sang and danced for 3 days. When those villagers that had not been to the previous party saw Princess Kaguya, they exclaimed, "Oh, what a beautiful daughter! Truly dazzling, almost enough to blind the eyes. "Oh my, she has the beauty of the moon." One by one, their voices praised her. News of Princess Kaguya's beauty spread from the village to the countryside to the capital. Soon, many young men came to the house just to get a glimpse of her. They gathered in Grandpa's village, but Princess stayed in the house and they did not see her. Still, the men who had gathered said things like, "Someday I'd like to see Princess. And why does her grandpa keep her locked up like that?" As summer went on, they tried to get a look in the house, even by climbing on the roof. Among the group that had gathered were 5 famous men. Several of these had great mansions and much money. The 5 men's names were Prince ISHITSUKURI, Prince KURAMOCHI, Minister of the Right ABENO MIMURAJI, Grand Counselor OOTOMO, no MIYUKI, Middle Counselor ISONOKAMI NOMARO 4. These men often came to the front of Grandpa's tightly shut mansion and waited from morning until evening. They also wrote letters and sent messages to Princess Kaguya, but there was no reply of any kind from the princess. Soon cold winter came and ice formed on the ponds. Then spring came and the flowers bloomed. Finally it thundered overhead, bringing on summer. But still, every day, the 5 men came to Princess Kaguya's mansion, and as soon as the 5 would see Grandpa, all 5 of them would hold out their hands imploringly and ask, "Please, give me Princess Kaguya to be my bride. Surely I will shower her with the best of everything." All Grandpa would say was, "Princess's heart is made up and I cannot do anything." One day Grandpa called to Princess Kaguya, "My dear, dear princess, please hear my request. There are 5 men of high regard who say they wish to have you as a bride. Is there not one among them that you might consider to marry?" With a sad face, Princess said, "Father, please forgive me, but I only wish to live with you and Grandma forever." "Yes, but Princess, we are 70 years old. Someday we too will die, and when we die, we want someone to be there to look out for you. Please, Father, I ask you, do not joke about that. Even if that time comes, I do not wish to be separated from you. Let me say this another way. Princess, all women become brides someday. Here are several wonderful men that desire you, right outside. Choose the one that will treat you best." Princess Kaguya was silent as she thought about this for a moment. "Okay, Father, let us do this. I have not seen any of these men. I do not know which is the most handsome or wealthy. That being the case, this is how I will choose before I become a bride. I will choose the one that desires me most." "That's a good idea, but how will you determine that?" "I will have each of them bring me a gift. For Prince ISHITSUKURI, in a country called India, is Buddha's sacred bowl. Please bring it to me." "And what will you ask of Prince KURAMOCHI?" "In the eastern sea is a mountain called Horai. There a rare tree grows. It has leaves of silver, stems of gold, and a pure, white fruit. Bring one of the flowers to me." "Okay, and for Minister of the Right ABENO MIMURAJI?" "In a country called China there is the fur of a mink that shines with jewels of fire." "And Grand Counselor OOTOMO no MIYUKI?" "Around the neck of a dragon known as the God of the Sea is a pearl of 5 colors, blue, red, yellow, green, and black. Please bring it to me." "Okay, and what will you ask of Middle Counselor ISONOKAMI NOMARO?" "I would like him to bring me a cowrie from the hidden nest of the Japanese swallow." Grandpa was astonished as he wrote all of this, who by themselves, with just their own hands, could do these things. "Princess, there is no one that can obtain such difficult things," said Grandpa with an amazed look. And Princess replied, "Is there not even one of these 5 men that can do these difficult things? They are all wealthy, famous, and strong. If they truly desire me with all their heart, there will be nothing that they will not do for me." When it became evening, the 5 men gathered at Grandpa's mansion. ISHITSUKURI played his flute. KURAMOCHI sang a song. One of the others whistled, one carried a fan, and the last carried rhythm sticks. Grandpa ushered the 5 young men into his mansion. Seating himself before them, Grandpa greeted them. "Thank you all for coming to my home time after time. I am most unworthy. I asked Princess choose from among them one whom you will marry and be a bride." And when I said this, Princess said, "I desire to know which one loves me most. I too believe that is an important question, and I asked, how can we know this?" Princess said, "By asking them to bring me the thing I desire most, the one that completes the task, I will be his bride." And when Grandpa said this, he told them about the things that Princess desired of them. When they had heard of the difficult things that Princess Kaguya desired, all 5 men were speechless. Almost in tears, ISHITSUKURI said, Even if Buddha's sacred bowl does exist in India, how am I to get a hold of it? And Kuramochi said angrily as he looked around. Where is Mount Horai? Even Buddha doesn't know. The minister of the right was almost at a loss for words. He tilted his head and said, Is there really an animal such as the fire mink in China? The Grand Counselor said thoughtfully, And if the dragon called the God of the Sea really exists, which sea does he live in? And with a sorrowful face, the middle counselor also said, I must search all of Japan and find the nest of the swallow. Can such a thing even be done? But all 5 men still wanted Princess as their bride. Well, let's each of us go and see if we can get our hands on these treasures. They each pledged with their hearts. Grandpa said, Please try whatever you can do for Princess. As ISHITSUKURI left Princess's home, he thought, Am I even able to journey to India and return with the sacred bowl of Buddha? But nevertheless, he returned to his own mansion and he thought about the dangerous journey to find Buddha's stone bowl. Is there only one sacred bowl of Buddha in no other place but India? Isn't it just a bowl? Even if I cross the sea and look, can I get my hands on it? Princess Kaguya has never been out and seen this bowl, right? Anyway, if I go out and find a bowl that resembles it, would she even know the difference? So thought ISHITSUKURI, and he had his servants prepare for a long journey. His servants said, Master Prince, what reason do you wish to journey to India? And, Please, Master, give up this idea of having Princess Kaguya as your bride. But ISHITSUKURI took no notice and continued his preparations. Finally, all the preparations were finished. ISHITSUKURI sent a messenger to Princess Kaguya. Today I will start my journey to India to find the sacred bowl. Prince ISHITSUKURI's long procession left from the capital. As they watched the procession go by, one spectator said, ISHITSUKURI is chasing after a dream, and another said, He will do well if he just makes it back alive. After leaving the capital, they journeyed for 10 days. ISHITSUKURI spoke to his servants. The truth is, we are not going to India. His servants were relieved to hear this. Now, I want all of you to hide in this area for 3 years. I will take 3 or 4 of you and go up into this mountain and hide. In 3 years, we will all gather here once again. The people of the capital and also Princess Kaguya will believe that we really went to India. This is what ISHITSUKURI explained to his servants. His servants, one by one, slipped quietly away. ISHITSUKURI took 4 of his trusted servants and journeyed up into the mountain. They continued up the steep mountain road. They followed it to the distant peak, where at last they came to an old shrine. Once they arrived at the shrine that they had seen at the top of the mountain, they stayed for 3 years. One of the servants was worried, What about the sacred bowl of Buddha that we are supposed to get? ISHITSUKURI looked through the nooks and crannies of the shrine until he found an old stone bowl. Here, he said, we'll take this back. ISHITSUKURI tucked the bowl into a black box. He put the box into a gold brocade bag and fastened a flower to the top. 3 years passed. When ISHITSUKURI came down from the mountain, the rest of his servants had already gathered. Once again they formed a long procession, and ISHITSUKURI and his servants started back towards the capital. When ISHITSUKURI's group neared the capital, word spread to Princess Kaguya. Prince ISHITSUKURI has returned from India with Buddha's sacred stone bowl, they told her. Grandpa quickly went out before the procession to meet him. Welcome back. He greeted ISHITSUKURI and invited him into the house. Ah, you've come with Buddha's sacred stone bowl. Please allow me to show it to Princess. And Grandpa took the gift into where Princess was. ISHITSUKURI has done a very difficult thing in bringing you this bowl. Hurry, open the box and behold. Grandpa placed the gift into Princess's hands. Princess opened the brocade bag, removed the box, and looked at the bowl. She sighed in disgust. My, what a dirty bowl. This surely cannot be the sacred stone bowl of Buddha. Grandpa was confused and puzzled. Buddha's sacred bowl glows with a shining light. This bowl does not have so much light as a firefly. Grandpa, please return this bowl to ISHITSUKURI. Grandpa walked helplessly back to ISHITSUKURI and returned the bowl to him. Inside the bowl was a note. The real bowl of Buddha is not such a dark thing as this. There is not even the light of the morning dew in this bowl. Prince ISHITSUKURI returned home, his face red with shame because he had been caught in a lie. Grandpa threw the ugly bowl out the gate of the house. Prince KURAMOCHI was a devious man of great plans. He prayed loudly to his guardian angels, "Watch over me as I travel to the eastern country," and then he prepared to leave for a long journey. Finally, to Princess Kaguya he said, "I am departing on a ship to seek Mount Horai." and he took his servants and left. At the harbor, a great number of people came to see him off. To his servants he said, "This next journey is very secret, so I am taking none of you along," and he left with only his most trusted servant. The well-wishers said, "Prince, hurry, return safely with the jeweled branch," and then they returned back to the city. But the ship that left the harbor 3 nights later returned to port again. However, there was not even one person that was aware of this fact, and after this easily conducted deception, Kuramochi got off the boat with his servant and they shut themselves up in a hideout. Unseen by anyone, 6 very skilled and celebrated craftsmen gathered from all over the country. The prince gathered gold and silver from all over the region. The craftsmen planned to create a match of Mount Horai's precious flowered branch. The 6 craftsmen worked with skill all night long, sometimes without sleep, stretching gold into branches and hammering silver into leaves to create the precious flowered branch that Princess Kaguya desired. Kuramochi examined the finished fake branch and was completely satisfied with the results. It was exactly like the gold and silver branch of Mount Horai. It was so skillfully crafted that the difference was undetectable. Kuramochi slipped out of his hideout under the cover of the dark night so that he would not be seen by anyone, and he boarded a ship and sailed out of the harbor. It turned morning. A second time, Prince Kuramochi sailed back into the harbor. As soon as they docked, Kuramochi dispatched his trusted servant to his own palace to fetch his other servants. His servants and all the people of the city came to meet him. Kuramochi announced, "I have just now returned from Mount Horai." He got off the boat acting like it had been an exhausting journey. Within moments, the news had spread among all the people of the port and the capital. "Prince Kuramochi has found Mount Horai and returned with the rare jeweled branch." The people gathered one after another at the harbor. Kuramochi put the jeweled branch into a special wooden box with great show and then returned to his palace. When Princess Kaguya heard the news, she was very surprised. The princess had not even dreamed that Kuramochi would find Mount Horai and return with the precious branch in his possession. Kuramochi's messenger soon arrived at the princess's home. He came to Grandpa and reported, "Prince Kuramochi will be arriving shortly with the golden branch." Grandpa immediately went out front of the house to meet him. Kuramochi still acted as if he had traveled a long way. "I have risked my life to bring the precious branch that the princess desired," he said when he saw Grandpa. Grandpa warmly greeted Kuramochi and invited him into the house. Kuramochi very impatiently said, "As you promised, give me the princess to be my bride." When Grandpa carried the golden flowers into the princess's room, he wondered why the princess appeared so disappointed. Grandpa said, "I'd like to know what's going on. You've heard that the Honorable Kuramochi has arrived with the thing that you requested. Won't you at least look at the golden branch from Mount Horai?" Grandpa set the opened box that Kuramochi had brought down in front of the princess. As he did, the princess said, "Father, I have no desire to become a bride. That is why I gave the 5 men only impossible tasks. Therefore, even though Prince Kuramochi has fulfilled my unreasonable request, I really do not desire to marry him. Father, please give him my regrets." Princess Kaguya cried and cried. Grandpa was troubled. "What is wrong with being his bride? Anyway, won't you at least take a quick look at the golden branch?" As Grandpa said this, he held out the beautiful opened box out to Princess Kaguya. The golden branch of Mount Horai shone brightly. The branch glowed as brightly as the real branch. It was beautiful to Grandpa's eyes. In spite of himself, he said, oh my, Princess, look and see. Is this not a beautiful flower? Certainly this beautiful thing could not have come from anywhere but Mount Horai." When she saw it, the princess felt a wonderful thrill go through her heart also. Still, it could never be enough to make her want to become the bride of Kuramochi. Grandpa quickly called Kuramochi to the door of the princess's room. "Tell me, how did you manage to obtain this beautiful flower?" asked Grandpa. Prince Kuramochi proudly started to tell his story. "As I remember, we left the harbor about 3 years ago. Many times the boat ran into storms. Other times we were buffeted by winds. Finally we arrived at the country of Mishiranu. Still my thoughts of the princess drove me on to seek out Mount Horai. Surely at least 500 days had passed, but at last we saw Mount Horai. The mountain that we had crossed the ocean to find was so beautiful. From the mountain ran streams of golden and silver-colored water. Where the streams came together there stood a woman dressed as an angel. I asked her, 'What is this place?' And she replied, 'It is Mount Horai.'" I was overwhelmed with joy. As I climbed up the mountain and its steep cliffs, I saw something that I had never seen before on this earth. A wondrous flowering tree that shone and glimmered with light. I thought, surely this is the golden branch that the princess desires. I quickly plucked one branch and returned. Fortune was with us. The wind blew us home in only 400 days and we arrived back at the harbor. Grandpa listened with great interest to Kuramochi's story, but just at that moment, there was a noisy disturbance at the front gate. "I say, what is going on?" said Grandpa as he went to see. 6 poorly dressed men stood before the gate. "Prince Kuramochi summoned us to work for him," said one of the men. "We worked night and day for 3 years under his direction to create a gold and silver flowered branch. But when we finished, Prince Kuramochi took the branch and disappeared. He did not pay us the money that he promised. News in the capital says that Princess Kaguya is to be Master Kuramochi's bride. Therefore we wondered if Princess Kaguya would kindly pay us the money, and so we came to see." He finished in a loud voice to be sure that Grandpa would hear. Grandpa was shocked, and before the man's statement was even finished, Kuramochi fled the princess's room and ran away. The princess called the 6 men in, and instead of the money they asked for, she gave them even more valuable rewards. The minister of the right ABENO MIMURAJI was the wealthiest of all the 5 men. He had a grand palace in the capital city, and he was also the most prosperous. Mimuraji had been asked by Princess Kaguya to bring her the fur of the fire mink. He quickly wrote a letter to a man named Uke, who occasionally came from China to Kyushu to sell goods each year. Mimuraji wrote, "Please buy and send me the fur of the fire mink." With the letter, he attached money and sent it to China with a servant named Fusamori. A while later, the merchant from China came to the port of Hakato. Uki had read the letter and sent a reply. "That is an interesting request. Is the fur of the fire mink really in China? I have heard tell of it, but I have never seen it for myself, so I don't know whether or not I can get my hands on it. However, when I return to China, I will ask around and let you know. If I can't find it, then it can't be found." When Mimuraji read this letter, he sent another messenger to Kyushu to tell Fusamori, whom he had sent before, "Go with Uke to China." Many months passed since the merchant had traveled back to China. Every day Mimuraji prayed silently that he would hear good news from China. Finally, the merchant returned to Japan again. News from Kyushu came to Mimuraji. "Fusamori is returning." Mimuraji was impatient and sent a messenger on a fast horse. "Hurry, waste no time as you return to the capital." Fusamori still had a long journey across the sea from Kyushu, but he hurried and just 6 days passed before he arrived once more at Mimuraji's palace. The letter that Fusamori brought from Uke said, "I have managed to get my hands on the fur of the fire mink. No one has ever possessed this before, not even anciently, not until now. It is also said that the fur was brought anciently from India by Buddha to my country and became the property of a temple shrine. I persuaded them to sell it to me, but I can't buy it with the amount of money that you sent. It will cost much more than that amount. Please send me more money. If you cannot send me more money, then I cannot buy it for you." Mimuraji was very excited that the treasured fur was within his reach, and he quickly dispatched another messenger with a great deal of money to where Uke was. A few more months and the messenger returned with the coveted fur. Mimuraji put the fur of the fire mink into a carved box inlaid with jewels. When the lid was opened, the fur glistened with the color of the deep blue sea and shined with the light of gold. "Ah, this is surely a great treasure. No wonder Princess Kaguya desired to have it," sighed Mimuraji to himself when he saw it. His servant also said, "There is nothing in the world that can match this." Together they marveled at its beauty. Mimuraji stared at it a long time. "Oh, I am unworthy to gaze at such a thing," he said as he closed the box tightly. Mimuraji bought a glorious kimono for Princess Kaguya and set out for the castle. He greeted Grandpa with the words, "At long last, I have obtained the fur of the fire mink." Grandpa was overjoyed and replied, "The princess will surely be pleased and will consent to be your bride." When Princess Kaguya opened the ornate box's lid, she said, "Oh, it is so beautiful." And she could not take her eyes away from the fur. Mimuraji saw that the princess was pleased and thought, "Ah, now the princess will surely be my bride." But the princess said, "How do we know that this is truly the fur of the fire mink?" Grandpa said, No, this is the real fur. No person could have any doubt." but he too wanted to prove beyond a question so that no one could say no. Grandpa wanted the princess to hurry up and get married. He was tired of trying to coax her to say yes. Legend said that if the fur of the fire mink was put into a flame, it would not burn. "Let's put the fur into a fire," said the princess. "If it does not burn, I will go to Mimuraji's place and become his bride." Grandpa didn't know what to do. In his heart, Mimuraji feared to put the fur into the fire, but he knew that the princess would not settle for anything less, so he said, "Put it in the fire and see. Let us make sure that this fur came from China. Why should this not be the real thing?" And with a feeling of dread, he consented to put it into the fire. As the three watched, he tossed it into the fire. When he did, a blue smoke rose up and the fur quickly disappeared into flame. The princess exclaimed, "What? It should not burn up like this. This could not have been the real thing." Grandpa trembled. Mimuraji was utterly shaken like wind-blown grass, and his face paled. Princess Kaguya said, "Why would you have allowed us to put such a beautiful thing into the fire, unless even you did not know before that it was a fake? Oh, I am so sorry that this happened." Mimuraji left the castle with a heavy heart. OOTOMO no MIYUKI gathered all his servants together. "Around the neck of the dragon is a jewel of 5 glowing colors. To the man that brings me this jewel, I will grant whatever that man desires." As the servants heard this, they said to one another, "We surely do not want to disobey the Grand Counselor's command, but none of us want to try and get this 5-colored jewel. And if it is around the neck of a dragon, do you suppose that we could get it even if we wanted?" And there was not a one of them that dared to try. OOTOMO no. Miyuki was enraged. "You are cowards! A servant should give up his life for his master's reasonable command. I am not telling you to go to a far country. The dragon lives here in Japan. If there is not one of you that will go, then all of you will go." The servants cowered at his threat. "We must do as you say. We are leaving now to search," they said. When the Grand Counselor heard their answer, his temper improved. "You will search Japan as representatives of OOTOMO, and you will use my name. Do not embarrass me when you return," he said, and then OOTOMO no MIYUKI gave them money. "Understand? Do not return to the palace unless you have gotten the jewel that glows with 5 colors from around the dragon's neck. Any of you that are afraid are not servants of mine." And with this admonishment, the Grand Counselor sent them off to find the jewel. After the servants had been sent from the palace, they did not know which direction to search. No direction seemed to be any better than any other. "Master Counselor told us not to return without the jewel from the dragon's neck. Since that is impossible, this is better. Let us divide the treasure among us and go our way," they said. After this council, each one took what they liked and they scattered off in all directions. The Grand Counselor had not even dreamed that this would happen, and he started to prepare to honor Princess Kaguya as his bride. As he went around the palace gathering rare and precious things, his thoughts were filled with the idea that soon Princess Kaguya would be coming here as his bride. However, day after day, night after night, there came no news from his servants. At last the Grand Counselor left his home and went down to the harbor. He went around asking the sailors, "Have you heard any news of OOTOMO no MIYUKI's servants bringing a jewel from around a dragon's neck?" The sailors all laughed. "What a ridiculous question! There has been no one like that go aboard any boat. We haven't heard of anyone looking for a dragon with a jewel around its neck." The Grand Counselor made a fierce face. "Those were my servants doing that. Your laughter is inexcusable." And he scowled at the sailors. "If I had a bow, I would shoot that dragon dead where it stands." The Grand Counselor made motions like a warrior. "What trouble? This time I shall go myself and conquer the dragon. Yo, sailors, bring me a boat." At the sound of his voice, the sailors all trembled. "That dragon is known as the god of the sea. We really don't think this is a good idea." OOTOMO no MIYUKI walked around looking them over. At last he said, "You go, get me a boat." And he sent a sailor. "Go row," said the Grand Counselor, and he started out in good spirits. At the start, the ocean was quiet, but without warning, as soon as they got into the open sea, a storm came up. The boat was tossed like a leaf on the top of the waves. At any moment it might overturn. OOTOMO no MIYUKI was not in the same good spirits as he was at the start. Now he clung trembling and shaking to the mast. "My eyes have never seen anything like this. Please, what is happening?" The sailor said, "Neither have I. I've sailed on boats for many years, but I have never seen a storm as fierce as this. I fear that if the sea does not quiet down and that if the thunder keeps crashing, this boat will be split in half. I have no hope of being saved. Do not speak like a fool. I hired you because you know how to sail a boat. Do not speak of hopeless things," shouted the Grand Counselor. "Master Counselor, I am not God. We are in a terrible storm. You must have a change of heart if we are to be helped. Surely this is the result of your vow to destroy the dragon god of the sea. If you want to be saved, then you must yield to the dragon god of the sea. There is no other way." The Grand Counselor listened to the sailor's words, and then he started to pray. "God of the sea, please hear me. My desire to get the 5-colored pearl was in ignorance. Please forgive me. Please forgive me." He repeated this 100 times, 1,000 times. Slowly it began to brighten in the west, and the storm suddenly ended. The sailor said, "Master Counselor, this storm must have been sent by the dragon god. Therefore we were able to plead for our lives." And he breathed a sigh of relief. The Grand Counselor collapsed on the deck of the ship, completely worn out by the seasickness brought on by the terrible storm. When the ship re-entered the harbor, a dejected Grand Counselor got off the boat and set out for his mansion, his happiness lost forever. "I will give up my wish to make Princess Kaguya my bride," he said, and he never returned again to see the princess. The middle counselor gathered all his servants together. "Where does the swallow build its nest?" he asked. "Where does the swallow nest? What kind of a question is that?" asked one of the servants. "I was asked to return with the cowrie laid by the swallow. It is a request by Princess Kaguya," said ISONOKAMI. Another servant asked, "Even if we find a place where many swallows nest, it will not be easy to obtain a cowrie. I've heard stories that the swallow carries its nest in its stomach, but I don't know if that can be true. But even if that is not so, we could spend our whole life searching for it." And another servant said, "The swallow is such a splendid bird, it is not going to be easy to catch it." Then one of the servants ran to investigate the rear patio. A few moments later, he returned from looking. "Master, there are swallows' nests right here. But before one can go and obtain a swallow's cowrie, first you must know, how do you catch a swallow? And before that, you must decide which swallow do you catch. Another curious thing, the swallow lays its eggs and warms those eggs to hatch them with its own body. But at that long ago time, people thought the swallow did not lay eggs, but laid a cowrie seashell magic charm as it gave birth to its chicks. So while the rest were discussing their own ideas, one resourceful man suggested, "Let's build wood into a scaffold beneath the swallow's nest. And then we can send an alert man up the scaffold to examine the inside of each nest. Since there are a lot of nests, shouldn't there be some eggs in one of them?" "That is a good idea," said Isonokami, and he dispatched about 20 men to the patio. The servants put up the scaffold under the eaves as suggested, then they lined up in a row on top of it. Each one looked inside of a swallow's nest. From inside the room, the middle counselor called out with concern, "Did you find a cowrie? Not yet? Not yet?" Now, with 20 men up on the scaffold, of course the swallows would be startled, and there is not a chance that they would return to their nests. Therefore, there is no way that the men could find a cowrie. Because the middle counselor was extremely insistent, one of the servants called back, "The swallows are afraid to approach their nests." The middle counselor frowned and pondered. "So then, that is a problem." Just then a wise old advisor named Kuratsu Asamaro one came and said to the middle counselor, "I have an idea." "What is your thought? Speak up," said the middle counselor, and he leaned forward to listen. Kuratsu proudly said, "It seems that if you have many servants near the nests, the swallows will not calm down and lay eggs in their nests. So first of all, take down the scaffold and then have all your servants get away from the nests. Next, choose one quick person to get into a basket, attach a rope to the basket, and rig a mechanism so that the basket can be pulled smoothly up near the swallow's nest. Once the device is up, the rest is simple. Keep your eyes open, and when the swallow lays a cowrie, you pull the basket up. The man in the basket must watch for the right moment and then takes the cowrie from the nest. This way will surely be effective." The middle counselor was very impressed. "That's a good idea." The scaffold was torn down and all 20 servants were called away from the patio. When all was prepared, the middle counselor had a thought, and he asked Kuratsu, "When do we know if the swallow will lay a cowrie?" Kuratsu replied, When the swallow wants to lay an egg, it twitches its tail upwards. It jumps up and turns around 7 times. So when the swallow turns around 7 times, then is the time to pull the basket up with the rope. The middle counselor heard Kuratsu's words and he nodded. Then he said, "You must teach this to my servants. Here is your reward." And he gave Kuratsu a great treasure. So the chosen servant crouched in the basket from below the patio eaves and watched for a swallow to start to turn around. Presently, one swallow returned to its nest and began to turn around. Once, twice, 3 times, even 6 times. When the servant saw the 7th turn, he said, "There, now!" And they pulled the basket up by the rope. They quickly swung the basket over by the nest. The servant put his hand in the nest and felt around, but there was nothing at all resembling a cowrie there. "I can't find a cowrie." The middle counselor was furious at the news. "You incompetent fool! Are you all right?" asked the servants. The middle counselor painfully replied, My back hurts. I can't stand up, but I've still got the cowrie in my hand." The servants tried to open his hand. Slowly, ISONOKAMI relaxed his fingers. He was only holding nasty bird droppings. The middle counselor lost his desire to go on. He was badly hurt and his will was exhausted. He closed his eyes and his life slipped away. All 5 of the wealthy men, to the last, had failed in their attempt to gain Princess Kaguya for their bride. In a short while, the rumors reached even to the emperor's palace. The gossip went, "So they all wanted the princess because she's so beautiful. I think I'd like to see this princess just once myself." So the beautiful princess caused quite a sensation. I heard someone say there is no other woman like the princess on this earth. He said that if you saw her, you would never forget her beauty. The gossip going around made even the emperor want to see her. "Send a messenger to her mansion to bring back the princess," commanded the emperor. And so a very important courtesan, 14, was dispatched to the princess's mansion. When Grandpa heard of the courier's arrival from the emperor, he thought, "To how many letters will this obstinate princess say no?" And he went immediately to the princess to encourage her. But the princess said, "Am I to accept this just because someone comes calling from the emperor? I don't want to be separated from you, father." And she would not even meet with the woman. Grandpa said, "If you anger the emperor, I don't know what we could say to apologize. He is used to having his own way." But even so, Princess Kaguya would not leave the mansion. Grandpa had no choice but to offer his apology to the courier. When the emperor heard his messenger's report, he said, "It seems that the princess will not come. Very well, I will go hunting near there. If I drop by while I am there and call on her, perhaps then the princess will be kind enough to meet with me." So, for appearances only, the emperor went hunting near Grandpa's mansion. As he came near, he saw a beautiful shining glow from the area of the house. Grandpa ushered the emperor into the mansion. Upon entering, the emperor glimpsed the exquisite pure figure of a sitting woman. "This must be Princess Kaguya," thought the emperor, and he started to approach Princess Kaguya, but she stood up to go into the back room. "Princess, wait," the emperor said, and he grabbed the sleeve of her kimono. The princess tried to hide her face with her wide sleeve, but even though the emperor had just caught a glimpse of the princess, he was completely captivated by her beauty. "Princess, go with me to my palace. Don't resist me." The emperor did not want to release her sleeve. Princess Kaguya hung her head and in a sorrowful voice said, "Please do not force me. I was not born in this land. Even if I was of this land, how should I refuse? I am not one that can go to your palace. Do not speak that way. Somehow come with me." And the emperor commanded his servants waiting outside to bring the sacred litter for the princess. "Please let go of me." "No, I will not discuss this further, princess." And the emperor tried to grab the princess's hand when suddenly, wonder of wonders, the princess disappeared. "What has happened?" The emperor was startled. Then he remembered that the princess said that she was not of this world. "Princess, please forgive me. I was wrong. I will not say any more harsh words. Please appear once again," said the emperor to the unseen princess. When he finished, the mysterious princess once again appeared in front of the emperor in the same beautiful form. The emperor said, "Just let me look at you for a moment," so that he could forever remember her. It started to grow dark, and the emperor had to return to his palace. "I regret that I must leave. I wish that I could look at the princess for the rest of life." Helplessly, the emperor thought about these events as he returned home. Again and again, as he rode home in the litter, he turned and looked back at Princess Kaguya's mansion. Daily, after returning to his palace, the emperor thought, "What a beautiful princess she is." Months passed after the emperor left Princess Kaguya's palace. During that period, the emperor wrote many letters to Princess Kaguya. It became springtime. On clear moonlit nights, Princess Kaguya would become lonesome and lost in thought. The princess's attendant tried to encourage her. "Ancient stories say that it is a bad omen to feel sad when you look at the moon. Please try to think of something happy." But the princess would only nod her head and stare wordlessly at the moon. Spring passed. By and by, summer came. Day by day, the moon grew larger and more round, and Princess Kaguya grew even more melancholy. Trembling tears would fall down her cheeks every time she would step out on the veranda and look at the moon. In sympathy, the neighbors said things like, "Why do you suppose the princess feels this way? Do you suppose she is sick? If she is melancholy all the time, surely she will grow sick." On the 15th evening of summer, the moon was perfectly round. The princess would not even eat. All she would do is stare at the moon. The neighbors mentioned their concerns to Grandpa. Grandpa went to the princess's side and said, "Princess, what is the matter? Tell me why you are staring and staring at the moon." "Father," she said as a tear ran down her cheek, "when I look at the moon, I feel so discouraged. Through my tears, I sit and wonder how much longer this wonderful life can continue." "Give up these foolish thoughts. Your life with Grandma and I will not soon come to an end. There's no need to fear, and even if you were left alone, are there not plenty of kind, loving neighbors around here?" Grandpa said kindly as he wiped a tear from her cheek. At Grandpa's words, the princess's heart felt a little more at peace. Good. Sleep would be good. "Princess, surely you're tired." Grandpa called to her attendant and had her help the princess to her bed. The princess went quickly to sleep. Grandpa looked at the princess's sleeping face, and then, feeling more at ease, he returned to his own room. But again, the next evening, the princess was lost in her thoughts, staring at the moon. "What in the world fills your thoughts so?" asked Grandpa, and he received the same answer as he had the day before. "Nothing at all fills my thoughts. I just feel concerned for some reason." "Then don't look at the moon. If you don't look at the moon, then you won't feel so concerned," said Grandpa, and he closed the door so that the moon could not be seen. "Grandpa, I won't look at the moon. Please open the door," pleaded the princess. Grandpa, Grandma, and all the household servants anguished over the princess's sadness, but still they did not understand why the princess felt so confused when she looked at the moon. Eventually the peak of summer passed and fall drew near. Many autumn insects began to sing in the mansion's garden. The full moon of August 15th grew nigh. Now the princess fell all the deeper into sorrow, and she no longer cared if anyone saw her crying. Grandpa could not bear to see her crying, and his voice broke as he said, "Dear, dear princess, what in the world is going on? Please tell me the real reason, please." Then Princess Kaguya, her tears trembling like sweet dew on fall flower petals, said, "Father, many times before I wanted to tell you, but I could not find the words. The truth is that I can no longer stay here with you." Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I am truly not a person of this world. I am a citizen of the moon, but even though I have lived here in this world, now the time has come that I must return to the city of the moon. On the 15th of August, when the moon is full, it will be time for the emissaries of the moon to come. Even if you understand, I know that you, my parents, will feel grief, and so every day I am at a loss to know what to do," wept the princess even louder than before. Grandpa's face became deathly pale, and he said, "What is this that you are saying? What messengers are coming to meet you? You are my daughter. Why would you have to return to the moon?" Grandma could not even speak. She hugged the princess close. The princess said, "No, just the same, Grandpa, Grandma, I must return to the moon. I want and desire to live here forever. Forever. But still, my true parents are waiting for my return at the moon's capital." Grandpa was shaken clear to his soul by Princess Kaguya's words. "We don't know that the moon's messengers will come for sure. Princess, if you leave, we will have no reason to live," cried Grandpa through bitter tears. Grandma and all the servants, too, wept with him. The emperor soon heard rumors of Princess Kaguya's tale. The emperor was amazed, and he sent for a servant. "I can't believe this story. Call the old bamboo cutter to me." When Grandpa heard the emperor's words, he hurried to the palace. Grandpa stood before the emperor and with a trembling, tearful voice said, "A strange thing has happened. The princess says she must return to the moon. Grandpa staggered, overcome with grief. The emperor turned pure white like a peasant, and his eyes grew red with tears. The emperor looked at Grandpa's sad face and said with disappointment, "Oh, then it appears that the princess's words were true then. So tell me, when is she to return to the moon?" She said that the people from the moon will come to take her home on the evening of August 15th. I have only seen the princess but one time, nevertheless I will never forget her beauty. Surely it has been difficult for you to come with your wife here this morning, so as much as I am able I will grant you a wish. Tell me what you desire, sympathized the emperor from his heart. Very well, I accept your kind words, said Grandpa, and he requested, this coming August 15th, if you would send a troop of soldiers to my home. If the host from the moon try to come, then your soldiers can capture them. Thereupon, surely they will give up trying to take the princess back to the moon. Very well, I will do what is in my power to protect the princess from the people of the moon, and he immediately sent his servants to prepare for battle. At last, the 15th of August arrived. At Grandpa's mansion, 2,000 soldiers waited. There was no gap between the soldiers arrayed around the mansion to protect and defend it. 1,000 men stood along the fence, another 1,000 men were on the rooftops, so that no matter where the moon's legions came from, they could not slip through their hands. Attended by Grandma, the princess went into the heart of the mansion, and together they hid themselves in a tightly closed storeroom. Grandpa said, "You will wait here. There is no way that the moon's people can come and take you." And he breathed an easy breath, and in a loud voice he called to the soldiers on the roof, "In a moment you may see something flying down from the sky. Shoot your arrows so that they do not miss." The soldiers replied, "We are at your service. Not even one bat will be overlooked by us, fear not, for we are very skilled." And they thrust out their chests with pride. But Grandpa did fear. Princess Kaguya said to one of the attendants, "No matter how carefully Grandpa and the Emperor's samurai protect me, they cannot oppose the moon's forces. And no matter how tightly you lock me away, if the moon's people come, the doors will open by themselves without explanation." Grandpa heard her words and scolded. "What shameful things are you saying? There are no greater soldiers in this country than these that have come to protect you. Every single one of the moon's troops will be arrested. Father, please do not get angry. Truly, I have been allowed to live with you for a short time only. I have never been much help to you. You are both growing older. In the future, there are a few things that I can help you with because I have lived here, but I cannot give you the things that you really wish. Truly, Father, I have been a great concern to you. I am filled with sorrow and I feel like my heart will break. The people of the moon are very cheerful and compassionate people. They never grow old. I would desire to go to that land and live, but I cannot be happy at the thought of leaving you, Mother and Father," sobbed the princess. Grandpa encouraged the princess to be happy. "There is no need to cry, princess. Stop your tears and watch the soldiers perform." On the evening of the 15th, the moon hung shining brilliantly in the center of the sky. Suddenly it became as bright as noonday around Grandpa's mansion. The soldiers on top of the roofs cried out, "The moon is so bright and so close! What is happening?" Moments later, the procession from the moon city descended, gently carried by a cloud down to the garden of Grandpa's mansion. "The moon's forces have arrived. Ready your bows," cried the soldier captain. But the soldiers lost all animation and only stared like fools at the army that had ridden on top of the clouds. Alone, the captain tried desperately to nock an arrow in his bow, but his fingers had no strength and the arrow flew only a few feet and fell to the ground. The rest of the soldiers stood frozen, blankly staring at each other's faces. Strangely, all 2,000 soldiers had lost their power to fight. The leader of Moon's emissaries stepped down from the cloud and stood before the room where Princess Kaguya was hidden, and raised his voice. "Princess, it is time to return to the kingdom of the moon. We do not want to stay in this place forever." And somehow, the tightly locked door opened by itself. Princess Kaguya stood up and stepped away from her mother's grasp, and walked as if drawn towards the people of the moon. "Father, Mother, it is time now that we must part. Please forgive me," said the princess in a beautiful, sad voice that was unlike any voice on this earth. Grandma held out both her hands towards the princess, but only tears fell on her cheeks. Grandpa tearfully asked, Princess, oh princess, if you must leave, please take us with you to the kingdom of the moon." The princess cried for a moment and said, "Father, mother, goodbye. On clear moonlit nights, please think of me." Then Princess Kaguya was surrounded by the heavenly horde from the moon. One of the angel-like figures presented a box to Princess Kaguya. In the box was a heavenly robe made of feathers and a vial containing a potion that would make it so she would never die. "Drink this elixir, princess." And the angel presented the vial to Princess Kaguya. The princess drank only part of the potion. Then the angels began to put the robe of feathers over the princess's shoulders. Princess Kaguya pleaded, "Wait just a moment, I have one last thing." Because when she put on the robe, she would forget all her memories of Grandpa, Grandma, and all the things that had happened up until now. While the messengers from the heavens waited, Princess Kaguya wrote a letter to the emperor. The letter said, "I truly would have liked to have become your bride." And then, when she had finished writing, she called one of the emperor's couriers and gave him the letter and the potion of eternal life. "Deliver this to the emperor as a memento of me." And then Princess Kaguya cried a tear and put on the feathered robe. Waiting for her on the cloud surface was a carriage brought by the moon's people. After putting on the robe, the princess had immediately forgotten all that had passed before, and she boarded the carriage waiting on the cloud. Feeling as if it all were a dream, the 2,000 soldiers simply stared at the sight as the carriage with the princess turned and headed away into the clouds. The heavenly messengers from the moon's kingdom formed a line behind the carriage and followed. They entered a beautiful golden beam of moonlight and passed from view. This is how Princess Kaguya returned to the moon's kingdom. Soon afterwards, Grandpa and Grandma who were left behind became ill and their spirits fell. The neighbors brought many keepsakes that Princess Kaguya had left in an attempt to comfort them, but Grandpa and Grandma did seem to feel any better. Grandma and Grandpa said, "What have we to live for now? Our only desire was to live with Princess Kaguya, and now that she is gone, what reason do we have to go on?" And they would accept neither medicine nor herbs to help them sleep. When the emperor heard the strange tale of the 15th evening of August, his strength left him. As he read the letter that Princess Kaguya had sent him, his heart grew more and more depressed. One of his servants tried to comfort him. "Well, you can still drink the elixir of eternal life." But the emperor said, "Since the Princess Kaguya is gone, there is no reason that I would want to live forever by drinking the potion. That would be a fate worse than death." And he sat numb and would not partake. The next day, the emperor called his servants and asked, "Where in Japan is the highest mountain?" That would be the mountain in Suruga, modern-day Shizuoka. "Take these things to the mountain and burn them on the mountain's peak. Surely the smoke of it burning on the top of Japan's highest mountain will carry my sorrows up to heaven." And he gave the letter and the potion to the servant. The servant climbed the mountain in Suruga as he was commanded. Then, on the mountain's peak, he burned the letter and the elixir of eternal life. Since that time, the Japanese people have named that mountain Mount Fuji, and ever since that time, when people have seen smoke from that volcano, they say, "Ah, Princess Kaguya's letter and potion are still burning. That is the way I heard this ancient story."